Alright, so this video is about how I cured my long COVID. First of all, I want to start describing my symptoms, which is basically heart palpitations, random nighttime tachycardia, and dizziness, orthostatic low blood pressure. Like when I stand up, I feel like my heart is pounding and I feel dizzy. And the nighttime tachycardia is the worst because it resembles so much of a panic attack. You just kind of think it's a panic attack, because I had anxiety before I caught COVID. I caught COVID four times in the past 3 years. I don't know what kind of variations they were, but I caught it four times and one H1N1 virus once. So it's like 4 to 5 very serious viral infections in the past 3 years. And I also had like some bacterial infections when I lived in Scotland. I also had a stomach virus, but the thing that's different about coronaviruses is that they hit me so hard. They hit my autonomic nervous system, and I did not know about that, right? I thought it was just like some other viruses, because the hard thing about coronaviruses is that when you feel like you've recovered, you have not. So for all the other viruses in my entire life, when I have symptoms, I have symptoms. When I don't have symptoms, I don't have symptoms. I can exercise. But with COVID, when I don't have symptoms and I exercise, and crap happens. Okay, so like with every single other virus in my entire life, when I feel a stomachache, when I have a fever, then I rest, right? When I feel like I'm no longer coughing, when I feel like I'm feeling well, then I go back to exercise. I go back to the gym, and then everything is fine because I can trust how my body feels. But with freaking coronavirus, I just can't trust my body anymore. I didn't know what was going on. The first time I caught COVID, after all the symptoms are gone. Okay, the first time I caught COVID was the first time in my life I ever felt what heart palpitations feel like, what chest tightness feel like. I never knew what those things feel like, because I just didn't know that the human bodies are capable of feeling those ways. And so basically, the first time ever I got COVID, I had a fever and I had a bit of heart palpitations, and then I recovered within a week. I thought I recovered, and then the week later I went for a hot spring. Back then I had no idea the link between heat change and your heart rate or stuff like that. And after that hot spring session, I just started having crazy chest tightness and heart palpitations. And I was like, what is going on? I went to the hospital. I had everything checked. I checked my troponin. I checked my ECG. I checked my x-ray. Nothing was wrong. So I was freaking out. And back then I was taking a long haul flight to the UK as well. And I was just basically freaking out the whole time, right? So after a 10-hour flight, I landed in the UK. I was basically thinking, I'm gonna die in a foreign country. And I checked into the airport hotel. I slept for an hour. Boom. Oh my god, my heart rate was like, I don't even know how much. I didn't have a smartwatch back then, but I felt like it was like 150 and something. And I just woke up and I just, am I gonna die here? And I called 999, took them, 5 to 10 minutes to pick up. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna die in a foreign country. This is very, very terrifying. And then 1 hour and a half later, the ambulance came from the NHS, and they checked everything again, did blood pressure, ECG, everything was normal again, and then, they left. And I was just like, I don't know how to live, And I went back to sleep because I had no choice. And the remaining days, I just had chest tightness. And I was just so afraid I was just going to die in a foreign country, right? And I was taking the train from London to Edinburgh and carrying 2 heavy suitcases. I literally thought, this is it. I was going to die. But eventually I survived. So once I checked into the Airbnb in Scotland, I rested well. I took Strepsils. I was also confused what medicine to take because, UK medicine was new to me. So I was like, I kept everything, like my ginseng, the medications that I took from home. Luckily I didn't die. and I was just resting. Then I rested for about like 1 or 2 months. By resting, I meant I just did daily life activities. I didn't do any exercise. So in that 1 month post-COVID in Scotland, I still had random nighttime tachycardia. I just woke up, I went to pee, and my heart was like 150. And I was like, what the hell? And there was no one to call. I was in a foreign country and no friends to reach out to. My roommate was sleeping and I wasn't really familiar with my roommate at that time. And I couldn't call an ambulance again, right? Because I thought maybe it's just a panic attack. It feels hard, but whatever. And eventually my nervous system calmed down and I moved into a multi-dwelling place in Edinburgh, and I had more friends and I felt slightly more secure. And this was 3 months after I caught COVID. Then I started going back to the gym. After the first day I went to the gym, I had a low blood pressure the night after, but the low blood pressure doesn't feel as scary as tachycardia because you just kind of feel like you need to squat down. So then I started going to the gym, and then I formed the habit of lifting for like 1.5 years, and everything was great. I was like, oh, my health is picking up. I'm fit. I can do sports. I even joined judo, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Imagine that. So, and then 1.5 years later, I was going to the gym every day for at least an hour, and occasionally also doing judo. So like 2 hours of training every day. So I felt I felt very healthy. All right. And then I caught COVID again, June 2024, which is like 1.5 years after my first COVID. And after my symptoms are gone, which took a week, then I started using resistance bands to lift weights, which was considered easy for me because I was lifting heavy weights at the gym. So after I did a really brief session with resistance bands for 20 minutes, on that night, the Tuesday a week after I caught COVID, on that night, I had terrible tachycardia at night. Oh my God. Because when you have tachycardia, you literally feel like you're going to die because your hands are shaking, your heart is pumping out of your chest, and I called an ambulance again. And of course, because I'm a young person, right? I'm not old, so they don't put priority over my case. So they sent me an ambulance like 2 hours later from the NHS, and still did every test on me. I was fine. And well, the paramedics are very nice, right? You can't explain to them to explain your cause of symptoms when nothing was found wrong. So they were just basically comforting me, saying that you're young and healthy, don't worry about it. They didn't explain the causes. They just told me to do slow breathing when this happens, or to just hold your breath, which is a tip that I still remember until today. To just hold your breath, they said, for a couple seconds. It's gonna like calm down your nervous system. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't have any options. So, but back then I was already planning to move back from Scotland to China. So I was like, okay, just let me survive this. I don't want to die in a foreign country. I want to be home with my family. So eventually, I think I had another night of tachycardia a week later because I walked for 20 minutes. So I was like, okay, never mind. So I was just like lying in bed, probably just like taking a walk after dinner, like downstairs briefly for all the time before I flew back to China. And then I flew back to China. And then after I flew back to China, I still rested for like 3 more weeks before I returned to training MMA. And I think on the first day of training, or on the first week of training, I had another nighttime tachycardia episode, but I thought it was low blood sugar. So I didn't really link it to like long COVID. So I rested a little bit, then I started training again. And then it was fine. It was fine training. And then 2 months later, or 3 months later, I started randomly having heart palpitations again. I never linked it to long COVID. I just thought there was something wrong with me. So I went to the hospital to get a Holter monitor for 3 days. Nothing was found wrong again. You can imagine my frustration because, like, you know, I the heart conditions kept happening and I had no idea what the was going on. Oh, Jesus. You can imagine my just frustration. I was just really scared. But, because nothing was found wrong, so there was nothing you could do about anything, right? Fast forward 1 year later, which is last year. So I had been training MMA and BJJ on and off last year. And sometimes I have nighttime tachycardia, but it only happened like 2 or 3 times a year. So I was like, okay, maybe it's just panic attack. Maybe it's just because, I had really bad anxiety before. Maybe it's kind of flaring up. But the anxiety that I had before COVID was never like panic attacks. It was more like obsessive thoughts, so there was no explanation. And then last year, summer, I caught COVID again for the third time. And then, a couple days after the sore throat, the excruciating sore throat, I started having nighttime tachycardia. And I was like, it's the same thing. I've rushed to the ER for like 12 times in the past 3 years. Whenever this happens at night, it's so scary, right? I always rush to the ER because it's just, I don't know if you guys have felt it. It's so scary. It feels like, you feel like you're dying, basically. So I rushed to the ER for like 12 times in the past 3 years and nothing was ever found wrong. So, yeah. And then I went to a clinic and then they started giving me Chinese medicine, which is like Chinese herbal medicine. Because in China, right, there are 2 types of Chinese herbal medicine. One are like the standard ones. They're prescribed as Western medicine, so they're just like in little packets that you can just take directly, or you pour water and you pour hot water. You make them like how you make tea. It's like those herbal soup. This is like prescribed Chinese medicine. The second type of Chinese medicine is Chinese herbs. You need to get a prescription from the doctor where the doctor mixes different kinds of herbs. And then you take the herbs back home and you boil the herbs by yourself. So this is like the second type of herbal medicine. So when I say Chinese medicine, I meant these packets. When I say herbal medicine, I meant Chinese medical herbs. So basically, I got these like Chinese medicine, which is supposed to help you calm your heart palpitations and everything, and they were very effective, right? They not only give you medicine that calm heart palpitations, they also give you medicine that helps with your stomach and spleen, so you absorb them better. So it's like the Chinese medical approach, right? Like regarding everything as a whole. So after I took those medicine for about like a week, I felt much better post-COVID. And actually 2 weeks later, and I was also doing intermittent fasting. I was doing 16 hours, 8 hours, 18 window. Because I've heard, this is not medical advice, this is just my personal experience. I heard fasting can help you reduce inflammation. So I was doing that as well. And 2 weeks later, I could go back to dancing. I go back to jazz dance class and I had no problem afterwards. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then a month after I went back to dance class, I went back to BJJ. But I wasn't able to perform full capacity. I could only roll 1 round. Then I would be really tired, right? I would be feeling, my heart pounding. So I was taking a break. And then a month later, so I did BJJ like 2 or 3 times. And then I decided to quit BJJ. That's another story. And then I restarted judo and everything was fine. I restarted judo. I trained for like a month or 2. And everything was fine. I loved it. It was intense. It was extremely demanding cardiovascularly. And then I caught H1N1. And then I started having heart palpitations and nighttime tachycardia again. And this time I rested for another 5 weeks. And then I went back to boxing and it's fine. During these 5 weeks, I had exercise intolerance. As soon as I pick up a dumbbell or as soon as I do a dead hang, I have chest tightness afterwards. I rested for 5 weeks and I went back to boxing. And it was fine. So I thought, okay, this is fine. I don't have another, I'm healed. I can go back to sports, blah, blah. And then 2 months after this, right? 2 months after I got H1N1 and potentially another COVID, because I didn't test this time, but the symptoms were quite similar. And now, about a month ago, I started belly dancing because your girl wants to be belly dancing. I started belly dancing. So the belly dance class is around 1 hour or 2, and it's standing, right? Because you're supposed to dance. And after my first belly dance class, I had nighttime tachycardia. I woke up panicking with high heart rate. And I didn't really attribute it to belly dance because, if I could handle boxing and judo, dance is like mild exercise. So I never attribute to it. And then in the following 2 weeks, I had 5 belly dance classes and I had nighttime tachycardia twice. Oh no, 3 times in total. Then I was feeling really weird and back then I was in a very, very abusive job as well, in a very abusive company that required me to deal with work when I was on sick leave. So I had to resign from that job to rest. And so after my 3rd tachycardia, I stopped going to belly dancing and I started noticing the worst dysautonomic symptoms in my entire life. So during my H1N1 recovery, I found on ChatGPT, that what I had was dysautonomia because I'm not telling you to trust AI medical advice. It's how the way that I use AI is that if it's giving me medical advice or kind of diagnosis, I ask it to link to academic sources, right? So I ask it to link its arguments to sources so I can kind of judge if the medical information is accurate. So basically, I asked it to link to YouTube videos, right? A lot of people are talking about long COVID is dysautonomia because there are other people that are randomly having heart palpitations, tachycardia, this kind of syndromes without getting a diagnosis, and it's actually dysautonomia and it's induced by COVID. Then I was enlightened, right? So after I caught H1N1, it took me 3 years to figure out what I had was not panic attacks, not anxiety, but rather dysautonomia. And I was very comforted to know that, I'm pretty sure you guys know the feeling when you have an illness. Getting a diagnosis itself is extremely comforting. So, but I didn't know how to treat it, right? I just thought, it's just dysautonomia, it's not dangerous. You just have to kind of write out the anxiety, the heart palpitations, and if it's too bad, you take beta blockers. I was prescribed metoprolol from my clinician, from my doctor, when I went for H1N1 infection. He didn't even prescribe me. He just told me to buy it. I was out of my own research that I find out that you take metoprolol for like heart palpitations or anxiety, and then it's a sort of beta blocker, and then you're supposed to come off it gradually. You cannot stop the medicine all of a sudden. It was just a nightmare. And so after H1N1, I used metoprolol for like 3 to 5 days, and then it was just basically off medications and then out and about, like resting and just hoping rest can help me recover. And so this time, after I got tachycardia after a belly dance, I was very confused because I didn't have a viral infection this time. because each and every time I have tachycardia, it's because I've had some sort of viral infection, right? This time I didn't have any viral infection. Why am I still feeling this way? So I was very angry with myself. I was extremely livid, actually. A few days after I stopped belly dancing, and when I was walking around, I suddenly felt unwell. Like I felt dizzy when I was walking. I stood up, I walked, and I felt dizzy. I didn't know what it was. I just felt angry at myself. I felt very, very, very angry. I felt livid about my own body. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm a I'm a fit person. I train judo and boxing. Like what? So I was very angry at myself, and I couldn't get over it. So there was one day I went to an event and I climbed a few stairs and I felt dizzy, and I was standing and talking to other people and I felt dizzy, and I was just like, I'm so frustrated with myself right now. So I went back home. I was like, I can't believe this is what my body is capable of nowadays. I used to train at an athlete level. That's what I thought. Obviously, I wasn't training at an athlete level, but that's how I felt, right? So I was very angry and I couldn't get over myself. Then I have a judo dummy at home. So then I just started rage throwing my judo dummy. I did 9 judo throws. I was like, fuck this shit. You know, I'm gonna prove myself. I can do it. My body can handle this. And then while I was throwing the dummies, my heart rate rose to 144. I was wearing a watch, but I didn't feel very bad. As soon as I stopped throwing the dummy, my heart rate dropped to 127. That's when I felt terrible. That's when I felt my heart was pounding out of my chest, and I was feeling this extreme panic. I felt like I was dying, that I need to go to the ER like right away. Then I was like, oh my god, I literally just killed myself. Like after that 9 dummy throws, I sat down. I was like, my heart was pounding. I was like, oh shit, I've just killed myself. Then I was like, okay, calm the fuck down, please. Then I was just like sitting in the chair. I was like, I couldn't believe what I did. Then I was just looking at my watch, waiting for my heart rate to come down. Then I was breathing, and then after a while, maybe like several minutes, I stopped feeling panic. I was like, okay, I'm not in danger. This is calming down. I'm not gonna do this again. I'm gonna, ask for medical advice. I'm not gonna do sports or exercise again, at least for a week. So I was just like sitting in that chair and watching my heart rate go down, and eventually it went down. I was like, okay, the emergency has passed. I'm fine. And then my heart rate dropped. I'm not in danger anymore. But then I started having very, very persistent dizziness. So after the dummy throws, after a while, I took a shower and then I went back to the bed. Then I started feeling dizzy. That's when the nightmare starts. I know it's dysautonomia, but it's the worst episode I've ever had in my entire life. So I felt very, very dizzy sleeping, and I slept at like 4 a.m. And the next day, the whole day, I felt very dizzy. So I started asking Grok. I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do, right? And Grok started telling me, okay, please don't criticize me for not going to a doctor, because I did go to a doctor, but I went to the doctor the one day after when I felt less dizzy, because I didn't want to walk to the clinic or the hospital because I felt very dizzy walking. So the most convenient way for me to get some help is to ask Grok. So I asked Grok. I was like, okay, what's going on? And then so Grok was the one that told me that given your history, it seems like you've been in the boom and bust cycle. So you would rest until you feel well, and then you would go to sports, and then that triggers another flare, and then you have worse symptoms like tachycardia. Then I was like, what am I supposed to do then? And then Grok told me that you're supposed to ease into your exercise and start building up your capacity gradually. Then I was like, what's the difference between what you're saying and what I've been doing? Because when I'm resting, I'm also like walking and doing shadow boxing. And Grok started saying that, oh, because this is a blood pooling issue, because there is a subtype of dysautonomia called PODS, right? Because when you stand up, you have tachycardia, and then you have a little bit of pressure, and then your heart has to pump faster, or it has to give you an adrenaline surge to be able to get the blood to your brain and heart. So the exercises have to be posture sensitive. You have to start exercising supine, lying on your back, and then you progress to seated, and then you progress to standing, right? Then I was like, I've never heard of this thing. What are you talking about? And then it told me it's called the Levine protocol, or the CHOP protocol, to cure POTS patients, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Then I was like, this sounds like I should be doing Pilates. I like doing Pilates. And it was like, oh yeah, it's exactly that. A lot of Pilates moves are very recommended in this stage. Then I was just like, okay, that sounds fun because I like Pilates, but can you provide me the academic sources to these approaches? And then it gave me links to the CHOP protocol of the Hospital of Philadelphia, and then it gave me the academic article link to the Levine protocol. And then I also asked Grok to give me academic links to like medical journals of this approach and anecdotal testimonials, and then it found everything for me. So I was like, okay, this is really good. This is really hopeful. So starting from that day, I counted as day 1. So I was like, okay, good. I'm gonna rest until I feel better, until I'm slightly symptom free. Then I'm gonna start the CHOP protocol, or I'm gonna start doing mat Pilates to rebuild my blood plasma and tolerance, postural tolerance. But I thought I was fine once I had that approach. I felt like, I had a path to follow through to cure my my dysautonomia, to go back to sports again. But obviously I was struggling psychologically a lot because, I used to do a lot. I used to do martial arts and dancing, and I always thought I was the strongest person in my family, and nowadays I need my mom to cook for me. I couldn't even cook and wash the dishes for half an hour without feeling dizzy. So obviously it was one of the most debilitating experiences in my entire life. I felt useless. I felt reliant. I felt like I needed my parents to take care of me. I just felt, I just felt like a fucking burden. Anyways, but I still kind of believes that if I just rested well and if I just follow this protocol, I will heal myself, right? But I still had lots of flares. So starting from day 1, I was resting, lying down. Day 2, resting, lying down. Minimum walking, probably just picking up the parcels downstairs. That's it. And then on day 3, I felt I could walk with feeling just mild dizziness, because on day 1 and day 2, I was feeling very dizzy even lying down. So on day 3, I was finally like, okay, I feel slightly more capable of walking today. Maybe I should go to a clinic to rule out other illnesses. So me and my mom, we walked to the local clinic. As I was walking, I started feeling dizzy, and I read online that you could squeeze your butt to help with the blood flow to your brain, so I was doing that. So as soon as me and my mom arrived at the clinic, my heart rate was high, right? I was queuing up to register as a patient, and then I was sitting down to wait for my number to be called, and my heart rate was like 110. So I was doing deep breathing in the clinic. Then I saw the doctor. The doctor made me do a blood test, a brain CT scan, a neck CT scan, ECG. This process took like 1 day and a half. I had to go in the next day to get my test, which is already